Remembering Pulse, 9 years after the mass shooting. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Brendan Byrne. Communities across Central Florida are marking 9 years since the mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub, where a gunman killed 49 people and injured 53. The city of Orlando is hosting its annual remembrance ceremony. And for the first and last time, families of victims and survivors of the shooting are visiting the inside of the nightclub ahead of its planned demolition. Brandon Wolf is one of the survivors who was there that night.
I think I've learned to grow around the grief and the guilt and the pain. There really is no way of fixing it. It doesn't ever go away. You learn to live alongside it, right? It is another piece of you on the journey.
Remembering Pulse, 9 years later. That's ahead on The Wrap. The big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these headlines. Visits to the Pulse nightclub mass shooting site in Orlando by survivors and family members of those killed began this week and are continuing through Saturday. Many of the families want to visit the former LGBTQ+ nightclub for the first time before it's demolished and the city builds a permanent memorial. Christine Leinenen was one of those visitors. She lost her 32-year-old son, Christopher Andrew Leinenen, in the shooting 9 years ago.
I would have regretted it if I didn't go through it, and I needed to see where my son took his last breath. It's as simple as that, and as painful as it is, it's nowhere near as painful as what my son experienced that night.
Leinenen remains strongly critical of the former club owner, the police response, and the FBI's failure to stop the shooter beforehand. Mayor Buddy Dyer says Orlando is thinking first and foremost of the victims, their families, and their survivors during these visits.
And we do everything that we have done based on what is best for them. And we're not saying you have to go in the building, but what we're doing is saying if that's something that will help you, then we're going to make this available.
FBI victim specialists are accompanying the small groups as they enter the building, and family members of the 49 people killed by the gunman 9 years ago will be able to stand in the very spot where their loved one died and see the bullet holes in the walls. Members of former Osceola County Sheriff Marco Lopez's staff were fired on the same day he was arrested last week. Lopez is facing charges of racketeering related to illegal gambling. Central Florida Public Media reporter Joe Mario Pedersen has this update.
Nerva Rodriguez served as the executive director in the Osceola County Sheriff's Office under Lopez until Thursday when he was arrested, according to the Sheriff's Office. Rodriguez released a statement saying she had, quote, no knowledge of the allegations against the former sheriff. She said she is not involved in the investigation. The Sheriff's Office also confirmed that a civilian employee, Ruben de Jesus, was terminated in the same day as Rodriguez, but the office did not say if the termination was a result of Lopez's arrest. Lopez pleaded not guilty Friday in the Lake County Court. He faces a bond of $1 million. Joe Mario Pedersen, Central Florida Public Media.
The Sumter County School District falsified data by creating shell schools for low-performing students. That's according to a year-long investigation by the State Education Department's Inspector General. Central Florida Public Media's Joe Burns has more.
The 53-page report finds that under former Superintendent Richard A. Shirley from 2017 to 2021, the district used those shell schools to improve the main school's performance data. That program, called SOAR, involved 200 students, and after the first year, parents weren't notified the kids had been officially withdrawn from the original school. Shirley and his former assistant superintendent told investigators SOAR was designed to help those students.
Central Florida Public Media's Joe Burns reporting. These stories and more on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. Advocates for the unhoused are sounding the alarm over the need for more overnight drop-in shelters in Central Florida, especially in East Orange County.
I make the case that we have the highest population of unsheltered homeless, maybe even more than downtown Orlando. They're just not as visible because they're in the woods.
How the state's camping ban is exacerbating that need. That story on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. Communities across Central Florida are marking 9 years since the mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub, where a gunman killed 49 people and left 53 injured. Brandon Wolf is one of the survivors who was there that night. Now he works as press secretary for the Human Rights Campaign, a national LGBTQ+ civil rights organization. Central Florida Public Media's Engage host, Sharon Stone, spoke with Wolf about how he's coped since then and turned pain into purpose.
6 days after the Pulse shooting, we had a funeral service for my best friend, Drew, and I made a promise to him that day as I was helping to guide the casket down the aisle. I promised him that I would never stop fighting for a world that he would be proud of. But what I've learned over the last 9 years is that that was never really about Drew, and it was never really about me either, because the world that he would be proud of is a world all of us can be proud of. It's a world where young queer people know they are loved and valued exactly as they are. It's a world where we don't have to be afraid to go to get a drink with our friends, go to the movies, go to school, that will come face to face with the barrel of an AR-15. And some of the wins I think that I would celebrate over the last 9 years are moments where we've broken through and given people hope that that future is possible. We launched an organization called the Drew Project, and to date, we've given over $250,000 in college funding away in honor of our best friend.
You have carried the weight of what happened at Pulse for 9 years now. And Brandon, you've spoken openly about that guilt that you felt for surviving. Has that shifted or evolved for you over the last 9 years?
I think I've learned to grow around the grief and the guilt and the pain. There really is no way of fixing it. It doesn't ever go away. You learn to live alongside it, right? It is another piece of you on the journey. I would say that some of the ways I've most successfully combated that sense of survivor's guilt, I wrote a lot about this in my memoir. One is I gave myself permission to feel joy again. And that takes intentional daily work to tell yourself that it's okay to laugh and to smile and to dance even when there are others who can't be here to do that. And perhaps it is even more important that you experience those things in their honor. So that has taken real intentional work. I have a great therapist, and I'm grateful for access to mental health care. And, finally, I would say I also found power in purpose and allowed myself to feel obligated, because I am still here, to carry on the stories of those who can't be here anymore. So I think it helps take the edge off the guilt to feel like I'm keeping pieces of the people that I love the most alive, that I'm making sure that they're seen not just as names on a wall somewhere or just two more on America's long list of victims, but in their full rich humanity as they lived. That helps me feel less guilty and more purposeful in my work.
Looking ahead, as time goes on, as the years pass, people are going to visit this site, the memorial, who weren't there, and they're going to get farther removed from it in time. What do you want those people to take away in the future when they stand at that Pulse memorial?
I want it to feel somber. I want it to be a place of reflection. I want the gravity of what happened to weigh on people's shoulders. I want people to understand the ingredients that led to what happened on June 12th of 2016, to consider the cost of violence, of hate. Hate is dangerous on its own. Armed hate is deadly, and militarized hate is a public health crisis. And I want people to sit with all of those things. And I also want it to be a place of hope. I want it to be a place of peace, of joy, as they think about the people who were stolen, the people who were impacted, not simply as they were on June 12th of 2016, but as they lived.
That was Brandon Wolf, a survivor of the Pulse nightclub shooting, speaking with Engage host Sharon Stone. Hear more from survivors and the community that aims to help them process grief and trauma. That's on Engage. Get it wherever you get this podcast. That's it for The Wrap this week. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media, with assistance from News Director Latoya Dennis and Digital Director Ryan Ellison. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.